Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie West, and I am the Executive Director of the Substitute Management Advisory Council, bringing you the Substitute Scoop. And on today's episode, we are going to meet with Velia, Verdiguel, and we are going to talk about Gwinnett County Public Schools in Georgia, learn a little bit more about their substitute program, and just hear from an awesome substitute manager and an awesome council member. Valia, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited too. I think this is awesome. So you are, before you tell us more about your school district, I want to say thank you for saying yes to joining the Substitute Management Advisory Council this year. You are our newest member, kind of filled in for somebody who had to drop off on the council due to personal changes in life. And I'm so happy you're able to join us mid school year. I know it's kind of crazy that you just hopped in and joined this ride with us, but we're so excited to have you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to learning from you all and maybe also providing some insight as well.
Yeah, and we'll dive right into providing insight. That's what we're here for today, and what our listeners are here to learn about is not just your school district, but I want to hear a little bit more about the size of your school district because it's pretty impressive the program you've created there from the ground up, what it looks like post COVID, but the number of students and employees in your school district and where you guys are located. So tell us a little bit more about Gwinnett County Public Schools.
Yeah, so we are again Gwinnett County Public Schools. We are north of Atlanta, maybe about 30-40 minutes, just depending on where you're coming from. In the metro, we have about 178,000 students, about 13,000 teachers, give or take, which makes us the largest district in the state. I've heard that we were at number 11 in the nation, but I believe we are now officially number 10. So we are a very large district here. Makes things very exciting all the time.
It does, and you know what too, is the fact that you guys manage all your substitutes in-house is astonishing to me. So, how many subs do you currently have in your sub pool? Whether that's just sub teachers or all substitutes, what does that pool look like?
So we have a little over 4,000 active substitutes. Give or take, we have about 2,500 working on average a month, anywhere within that pool. So about half of them are actively working at any given time. So, and we do have a variety of subtypes in our district. So we have substitute teachers, parapros, clinic workers, clerical staff, and custodial staff as well.
That's amazing. So, with that many people in your sub pool, do you see a lot of substitutes who sub in multiple job types? Like, do you see substitute teachers who also will pick up a substitute food service or custodian position?
We do. So one of the things that we do to encourage our subs, or give them a tip rather on how to be successful, is to start off as parapros because most of our subs don't have classroom experience. They
Mm.
are career changers, maybe in transition between jobs or whatever the case may be, just looking for some additional income and they don't have classroom experience. And so we encourage them to start off as parapros to get to see what it's like, learn alongside a regular teacher, ask questions, observe, and then transition into a teaching position or a sub teacher role. And then for us, we don't have school over the summer. And so that
Mhm.
custodial option is the only one that is available. And so we do get a lot that will come in and work over the summer as well.
I think that's a fantastic strategy, to give substitutes year-round work if they want it. I think that's
Mhm.
something you don't see a lot. With all the conversations that I've had in the past few years being a part of the Substitute Management Advisory Council, we don't typically talk about, well, what do you do during summer? There are some school districts that you do have summer school,
Mhm.
and reading camps and things like that. So substitutes will have the opportunity to sub in or assist in those programs. But I think thinking outside the box like you have in Gwinnett County, you're able to, possibly do those summer camp programs. You're able to do custodial work, food service work, drive for a summer camp program if you're a bus driver and have a CDL. So I think those are really creative ways to think outside the box and give subs opportunities to continue employment over the summer, especially if they have like a kid who's going to camp or something. And they're like, what do I do while they're at camp?
Yeah. So, well, let me kind of back up. So we do offer summer school, but because our
Mhm.
students that are going to summer school are there for promotional reasons or just need additional support or maybe earning actual credit, we don't use our substitutes for the program. They
Mm.
have their own in-house response program in place. So instead of using subs there, they're using regular certified permanent staff. So we just limit our options for substitutes to just that custodial piece
Mhm.
because there we need to get those buildings ready to open school.
Yeah.
And so that's where they can come in and help support.
I love that, I love that. So, one of the other things that I wanna touch base on is I know you're not the only person on your, let's say, substitute team, right? So, you're not the only person who manages subs in your district. Tell me a little bit about what your team looks like, the people on your team, and then just the efficiency piece that you guys have in play, how you're able to go through daily tasks, deal with every tornado that comes in the HR office, but also manage a very healthy number in your sub pool. So tell me a little bit more about that HR office team and sub team that you have.
Yeah. So we are a team of seven, with myself included. We have five HR associates and an HR coordinator. And the way our team is designed, our five associates each support a cluster of schools. So we have 142 schools in our district, soon to be 143. And so we have one person that supports the high schools, we have one person that supports middle schools, and then we have three that divide the elementary schools.
Okay.
Yep. Not only do they support their schools, whatever needs they may have, uh, things like long-term sub um, positions, and so they'll support them with maybe emailing a targeted list of substitutes who might be qualified for that position, putting out email blasts, system alerts. They also then are broken down and support a group of applicants. So not only are they managing the applicant pool, they're also supporting the schools. And then for those same alphas, they also support them when they join us as employees. So as they're having questions, need support, they have a direct line of contact with to someone within our department. Now, our HR coordinator, she supports behind the scenes really in making sure that all of our technical pieces are working. So we here in Gwinnett, we use Frontline. And so she is one that manages that system, making sure that it's operating efficiently. We make sure we keep that data really clean. And then she also helps us support any performance concerns that are coming in from the school because, we may have that come up from time to time. And so she is going to be that person that receives that information and helps um, move that along to where it needs to be. So, that's how we, manage it on a daily basis, and I'm super honored to work along such an amazing team. They're really a great group of, ladies, and I don't know that I could do what I do without them and their
Mhm.
support.
This episode of the Substitute Scoop is brought to you by Red Rover, a modern human capital management solution built for K 12 school districts. From hiring and onboarding to time tracking, absence management, professional development management, and employee records, Red Rover helps districts work smarter, stay connected, and keep classrooms covered. Learn more at redroverk12.com. I love hearing just the positivity. Like, it's one of those things, if for the people listening and not watching, they can like hear your smile when you talk about your team. And I think that's something that's so rare in HR. So it's nice in K 12 how community feel we are. We have this like passion for not only what we're doing, but the team we're doing it with.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really awesome when I talk with you and talk about your school district is you're just like this bright light of positivity talking about how amazing your team is and that you wouldn't be where you are without them. So I think that's something, it just speaks volumes in regards to what you're able to do every single day within your substitute management system and your substitute pool. So you can definitely tell if you have over 2,500 active subs every single day. That means that you guys are doing something right. And I do love that, especially in the metro Atlanta area, one of the most
Mhm.
populated sections of the entire country. You
Yeah.
guys are thriving. One of the things that I do want to ask, and it's not something I don't think I've asked anyone else, is how are you renewing your subs? Do you have like a renewal process year to year? You talked about they're in charge of how your team will maybe manage the recruitment, the hiring, the onboarding, and things like that. But what does it look like for them to renew year to year? And are your subs on some type of contract?
So we don't use a contract system because we our substitutes are just that. They're substitute almost like a temp miscellaneous position.
Mhm.
So they on call as needed. So they're not contracted. However, as long as they're working, they will remain active for the next year. And so we tell them just like a regular employee comes back to work in the fall,
Mhm.
you do too. And so you can go into the system and start looking to see what some jobs are available. Now, we know there won't be a whole lot out there right at the beginning because everybody comes to work the first week of school. But over time, they'll start to see an increase in assignments. So there's not a renewal process so long as they're actively working over the school year. Now, if they decide to just stop working, then we go ahead and have a system in place where we process them out and inactivate their status to keep our pool as clean as possible. And we do that on an annual basis over the summer.
Okay, awesome. I love that. I feel like that's very clean, very neat, very organized, and it doesn't put a lot of weight on your team.
Mm.
So, yeah, I really do feel like that's a very efficient process. Um, yeah, you guys are definitely doing a lot right in Gwinnett County. I think it's fantastic. So I know Valia, have been in K-12 for a long time now, in the K-12 realm, and sat in a lot of different seats. So tell me about your pathway of how you became the senior HR manager, and maybe talk a little bit about your experience of what made you choose education as a pathway in the first place.
So funny, I actually had this conversation the other day. I landed in HR by accident. And I always say that I find that most people don't strive to land in HR somewhere. You just somehow happen to land here.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I came to Georgia in 2007, originally from Wisconsin, and I ended up finding a job as front office staff or just office staff really at a high school. And I worked there for 5 years and then eventually interviewed for an HR role as an assistant. And that's how I landed here. I just started off as an HR assistant and I was supporting high schools at the time and any staffing needs they may have had, posting jobs, vetting candidates, processing transactions. And then I did that for a couple of years. I then transitioned over into Title II program under the federal program umbrella, but still within HR. I did that for a few years and then landed over in the substitute role. And I joined the substitute department in 2021, coming out of COVID. And so
Yeah.
that was navigating those pieces. I'll be honest, I didn't know a whole lot about substitutes and the substitute program. I knew that all of our schools had a substitute coordinator, that we had a substitute need, but I did know staffing. And so I leveraged a lot of that knowledge in the role that I have today to help um, build the program that we have right now.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. And I think that gives other sub managers who may not be in a senior HR manager type position, or in that administrative type role. I think it gives other sub managers listening the idea that you can sit in so many different seats in HR and end up in the sub world and find your fit there.
Mhm,
I was the same way. I actually started as a sub, so my path is a little different, but I did start as a substitute teacher in a different county in Florida while I was a college student. And then when I came back to Lake County, which is where I started as an HR specialist, they were like, well, you were a sub, and we need someone to take over the program, and all the schools are shut down because it's COVID right now. How
mhm,
about you create a substitute program? And no one's allowed on campus, so you have to figure out how to do that during this time frame. So it was a benefit during COVID, right? You
mhm,
have a lot of downtime, I guess, because the phones aren't ringing off the hook,
mhm.
and you can create a sustainable, efficient program
Yeah,
without really having knowledge of what you're doing. You're just bringing that HR expertise and that customer service centric mindset, and you're able to create an awesome program. So, you've done an amazing job there. And I know all the kudos you're going to say are constantly going to your team, which is where they should go. But also kudos to you because you really have been an awesome leader, and for someone who only met you in October of
mhm,
last year, and here we are in March 2026 interviewing you for the Substitute Scoop, I think
mhm.
I've been able to see the impact that you're making just from where I sit. So I'm excited to share you with the world now on the Substitute Scoop.
Well, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you.
So, we're going to hop into a little bit of advice because from such a large district, you see a lot of different things. You're managing many different fires that you're putting out every single day. What advice would you give anyone who wants to become a substitute manager? Maybe they're currently an HR specialist type role, or maybe they're a secretary at a high school that are thinking about moving into that sub management realm. What advice would you give them?
I would say, 2 things. Leverage the experience that you have, that know what you bring to the table,
Mhm.
and how you can fit that into the current role. And so that would be number 1. But the second thing I would say is be open to feedback and suggestions. And not just from your team, but also those that you serve. And so we have 142 schools. That means we have at least 142 voices that can contribute to that work. And before you do anything to make a change, make sure that you are listening to what they're saying and it's going to fit the need for that school and for the district as a whole. And so, really, just being open to the feedback with suggestions because there's so many out there, and you want to make it to work best for everybody.
I love that. One of the best pieces of advice that I learned from a mentor right when I started building my substitute program is you only know what you know, and you do
Mhm.
not know what you do not know. So, because of that, I had to go, okay, that's true. I'm not sitting at the front desk of this high school checking in subs and checking out subs and, controlling that. So, how can I best collect that feedback? I need to realize that if that secretary that checked in subs that day wants to call and vent about this awful experience they had, let them vent, hear them.
Mhm.
They're taking the time to tell you about what's happening on campus because when you sit at the district level, you may think that you know, but you don't
Mhm.
really know what's happening there, right?
Right.
So being able to listen and take that feedback is critical to a good subculture, but a very functional system, right? The sub management is truly a system. I like to
Right.
call it sub world or sub realm. And you have done such a great job, not only listening, but taking that feedback constructively and being able to implement it into a sustainable system. So I think that's fantastic, fantastic advice. So always listen to feedback, folks. So my other question is, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to be a substitute teacher? I know in 2026, this can be a really tough question to answer, and a lot of people, I think different, have a different perspective of teaching now
Mm.
than they did 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So what advice would you give anyone who's looking at becoming a substitute teacher in 2026?
So the one advice that I would give someone is I would say um long gone are the days of babysitting, and sitting behind the desk. And so, as a substitute teacher, you are contributing so much to the growth and achievement of students. And so, you have to be really sure that you're ready to step into that role. And once you've made that decision, just know that there are so many resources available to you there, whether it be in house for the district that you're working with, but there's other platforms. There's subgroups,
Mhm,
there's different organizations, and take advantage of all of it. And if you're really wanting to be a substitute teacher, we find that most of them are going to eventually transition into a teacher role. And then we have those
mhm,
resources there for you as well. And it's such a rewarding position, and just
mhm.
to go in eyes wide open and be ready to receive all of the things that are coming your way.
I love that you mentioned that substitute teaching is rewarding because a lot of people don't see it that way. And you are correct. Long gone are the days that you're a babysitter. We don't roll in TVs anymore. That's not a thing.
No,
So,
literally.
and I think, yeah, and I think a lot of people have that image still stuck in their head, especially when you do have retired teachers getting back into it, or people who just maybe they don't have kids and want to explore teaching. So their only experience in a classroom was when they were a student. And that is when subs were
Mhm.
babysitters, right?
Yep.
So you and I definitely agree with that one. So
Yes.
even when I became a sub, which was pre-COVID, we still did not roll in TVs. I had sub plans. I followed those sub plans. And when I didn't, we improvised, man. There are free tools. The internet is powerful. Figuring out how to engage a classroom and build relationships with students is so important for a sub. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people think, well, I'm just here for the day. You're
Yeah.
here for the day, but that day could be a really important day for at least one student in that class. They
Right.
could have had the worst morning they've ever had, and you can be that one person who can make a difference in just
Mhm.
the 6 hours you're in front of them.
Right.
And I think it speaks volumes that you're able to share that advice from never being a sub yourself. So I love that you see it as a rewarding position because it truly is. Um, and that you have the opportunity for people to become teachers and have those resources for them within your district. I think that speaks volumes and it's fantastic advice. I think when I became a sub, I was just a college student, extremely naive, extremely nervous, and just said, this will be fun. And I got into it and I was like, fun isn't the word, right? But there are those moments that it can be so rewarding, as rewarding as being the full-time teacher can be. You just have to be open to that, and you have to, build relationships with the people in your substitute world that you live in,
Yeah.
and I think you guys are doing a great job at Gwinnett County, so thank you for sharing that advice with our listeners.
Yeah. You're so welcome.
Awesome. So, is there anything else that you would want to share with sub managers listening to this podcast today before we go ahead and wrap up?
I would say, you know, as you are working with substitutes, what we have found to be such a great tool for us is just that open communication to all parties involved.
Mhm.
We use what we call the Great Sub Experience framework here in Gwinnett. And so making sure that our schools understand what that framework looks like, making sure they provide that experience to them. It's a huge retention effort. And so I would say find what works for you in your district. You can take anything from the big district and apply it to a small district, just like a large district on the flip side can take something from a small district. And so um, just find something that you find works for you and
Mhm.
run with it. And I think that's what we've done here. And it has worked very, very well for us. And we love what we're doing and hope to continue to grow our.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Valia, for joining us today on the Substitute Scoop. And
Yep.
we'll be out there soon finding someone else, an amazing substitute manager to interview. And again, so happy that you are joining the council. You're new, but we have 2 years almost to go, and it'll be a great 2 years with you on this council. So thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, that's the Substitute Scoop.